Jesus Reigns TV. Colonizing, dominating, and impacting nations with the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ. A men anointed by God for such a time as this, proclaiming the decrees of heaven and announcing the seasons of God among man. A men aligned with the calendar of heaven. A prophet with an attitude of a servant, a father with a heart of son, a voice of prophecy in this generation.
I want to say to the President of South Africa, the Lord have seen that currently your government is planning to implement a health law.
There's been mixed reaction to the passing of the National Health Insurance Bill by Parliament. The bill will now be referred to the National Council of Provinces for consideration. If it gets the green light, it will then proceed to President Cyril Ramaphosa for possible final approval. Some business leaders and trade unions say the government's plan is unsustainable.
I want to say to the President of South Africa, the Lord have seen that currently your government is planning to implement a health law that will make the people of God, whose righteous freedom is granted by God, not by any government and not by any law. The freedom of the people comes from the Lord. And you are trying to pass a law that wants to make sure that it infringes the will of God by continuing to listen to those who push a cult movement of the New World Order that is already failing.
Many in the medical aid fraternity remain pessimistic about the feasibility of the proposed national health insurance. The NHI bill, which was passed in Parliament yesterday, aims to provide universal public health care and narrow the inequality gap in health profession. But not everyone agrees. We are now joined by Craig Comrie from ProfMed, the CEO. Craig, thanks for taking us. For starters, I see you are doubtful that this bill will bring any improvements to the overall healthcare system. Why is that?
Yeah, I think you have to, good evening, and thank you for having me. I think you have to look at the details of the bill and then consider some of the missing elements of the bill as well. So absolutely, we need to do better for the South African citizens in terms of healthcare in general. And so the bill, in terms of its intention, is correct in terms of improving access to healthcare. However, when you look at the details, what it quickly does is it looks like effectively a nationalization of medical scheme premiums. And we think that agenda is incorrect. We think that if you are going to push a national objective of improving healthcare in general, you need to work alongside the medical schemes that already provide significant value to just over 9 million lives in the country. So we realize that there is an inequity in terms of the different funding that exists. However, we think there's a way to work together in terms of accomplishing the national objectives of improved health. And so to relegate medical schemes and even to relegate those who perhaps pay for healthcare services out of their pocket and force them into a very draconian and monopolized funding mechanism called national health is something that we absolutely disagree with. And so we need to actually work a little bit closer together, and some parts of the bill need to change in terms of addressing that.
Craig, as ProfMed, you make many benefits available to your clients, and you believe that those benefits will be limited quite significantly under the NHI. What are those benefits?
Well, I think that's the really good question. What we haven't seen as part of the bill is a description of what benefits will be covered. And so what you're missing is the benefits and then the pricing that goes behind those benefits. And every funder in the marketplace realizes that without that, you really don't know where to start. And so from the essence of the bill, the philosophy is correct to improve healthcare, but when it comes to the benefits that are included, we haven't heard what those benefits are, and we haven't had clear indications of how much this may cost. At the moment, we're waiting the money bill that's supposed to accompany this type of bill. And I think once we start seeing that arise, we'll start understanding the details. But effectively, the thinking is, and what has been said, is that the medical scheme premiums will become effectively a tax on those that currently pay those medical premiums. If you are going to fund an NHI, which is probably 3 times the size of the funding that Eskom requires every year, you are looking at a centralized monopoly of the healthcare funds that then get designated to different, whether it is public or private facilities, to actually provide those services. And so our point of view from a ProfMed perspective is that people cannot afford those increased taxes at the moment. South Africa has one of the highest tax rates for personal income tax across the whole of the continent. And so any increase is going to really spell trouble for people already in trouble in terms of the pressures we've seen in the economy, in terms of inflation rates and other items. One of the other real pressure points that we see coming through is the fact that we are losing healthcare workers quite quickly. There are a lot of developed markets that are targeting our healthcare workers, and so we don't have a retention plan to actually keep our very highly skilled medical doctors and specialists and even nurses in the country to service what is envisaged as national health insurance.
The freedom of the people comes from the Lord. And you are trying to pass a law that wants to make sure that it infringes the will of God by continuing to listen to those who push a cult movement of the New World Order that is already failing.
We've survived because we've been independent providers in the private sector. If suddenly now someone has to decide whether I get a contract or I don't get a contract, that would be too much power, that would destroy too many lives, that would create too much havoc and disturbance. There are statutory bodies that are out there to certify us for fitness and competence to practice. That should be the license to practice. In fact, citizens should have the right to go to any provider that can provide the care. What is being prescribed there is a monster waiting to be unleashed on unsuspecting South Africans. That is something that cannot be done.
Men anointed by God for such a time as this, proclaiming the decrees of heaven and announcing the seasons of God among man. A men aligned with the calendar of heaven. A prophet with an attitude of a servant, a father with a heart of son, a voice of prophecy in this generation.